Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming. Welcome, wine fanatics. Another Thursday in beautiful August. I can't believe this year is uh gone. 7 months have gone by already. That's just crazy. Anyway, we are so happy to have as our special guest tonight, Elena um, Barrios or Martinez. Should I call you Martinez or Barrios? Does it matter?
Martinez, yeah, I've kept my maiden name,
Oh,
but
okay. Then I got it wrong. I apologize.
no worries, all is good.
Anyways, we're so happy she could join us. And, Top is one of the most often talked about wineries on our group page. And I thought it'd be great to learn more about she and her husband Stanley and what they're trying to do here with this winery. And the wine's very, very good. So I'm going to let Jason kick it off here. Jason.
Thanks, Mike. And thank you all for joining us on this lovely summer evening when many people are out vacationing or watching the Olympics. We appreciate you dialing in. We are excited to have Top as our featured winery this evening. Transparently, I'm a member, um, but I think that's okay. We can be biased here. I think that's all right. Um, So, Elena, thanks for joining us. It's an honor to have you here. I think we met briefly, you probably don't remember. We kind of co-hosted a thing with at her table uh, a while back, I think with you and Jordan, if I remember right, um, which was quite an all-star lineup. Um, but we are going to go through a series of questions to get to know you, to get to know the business. Um, I'm going to ask you the questions. If you want to include insights on Stanley, that's up to you.
Absolutely.
Stanley's not here, so you are our featured host.
Absolutely. I can
I
talk
guess that's
all
okay.
about him as much as I like,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And don't mind, I might throw in some video here where appropriate, that Brian, thank you, Brian, for taking of the winery so people can get a little bit of a look into what's going on there.
Yes. So Mike, just cue me up whenever you're ready to let that roll. Um,
Just go.
so you're gonna go now?
No, go ahead, just go.
Oh, okay, okay. So just to get started, and we'd like to kind of first learn about you. We know the story is often what um, people find compelling, and we really like to keep this format, much like the discussion would be in the winery. And by the way, before we get started, I'm absolutely loving this. In fairness, I don't think I've ever had a top wine that I didn't love. Um, I'm not even a big, I'm not even a huge rosé fan, and I love the rosé. Uh, there we go. Look at those nice bottles out there. Look at that. Well done, everybody. Um, so I know you did some hospitality before you got into wine, so we're going to do everything we can to not talk about wine for a few minutes before we transition. But um, I know even the hospitality will gravitate towards that. But can you tell us a little bit about life before top, life before wine? What did you used to do?
For sure. So first of all, thank you so much, Jason, Mike, the whole Wine Fanatics team, and any of you who are spending some time listening in and getting to know our brand a little bit. We really appreciate having a little bit of an audience. So thank you all for your contributions and making tonight special. But yeah, I have some background in hospitality. I was a 15-year-old working at the Sunglass Hut in the South Bay area, and was my first official job on the payroll. And I worked only weekends. And a guy came in who was the manager of a restaurant, saying that I had pretty decent customer service skills, and he'd love to like steal me for his restaurant as the hostess, and that he could pay me more. And I'm like, oh, pay more? Okay, cool. Let me take a look at this. I spoke to my parents because the Galleria was like walking distance from my home, and this restaurant was in Manhattan Beach, and so I needed a little bit of assistance from my parents to drop me off at the restaurant. gratefully and thankfully, both my mom and dad said yes, that, I can definitely work at the restaurant as long as it doesn't interfere with my schoolwork. But I worked Fridays and Saturdays, and that's really where I started receiving an education on wine. So I was always pretty mature as a young child, and so I just think people assumed I was 18 or 21 because most folks in the restaurant world are older, but I was 15 at the time. And so I got a little bit of an education on Barolos and Burgundies and Bordeaux, and never really drank because I was so scared of my parents, and my parents would pick me up. And so I never really wanted the aroma of wine in my mouth. And I don't think my employer would have let me drink, but in the event that they would have, I was so deadly afraid of my parents that I really would just smell, I would always smell, ask questions. And my restaurant life kind of maintained throughout college and undergrad. And I always needed to know a thing or two about wine, always being underage, but selling, like Colt T Napa cabs, and having to know a little bit about this, a little bit about that. And finally, when I turned 21, I was able to do some sampling. And I really thought it was BS. I really thought that all wine was the same, but that just some people would pay an astronomical amount for like, the $200 bottles, but the $20 bottle is like good enough. And I think I experienced my first wine as a server. I'm like, oh, there is a difference between a $100 bottle and a $20 bottle. And slowly but surely, I spent from 15 to 21, 22 working in restaurants, really admiring wine by the time I left my last restaurant, which was Ruth's Chris in Woodland Hills, and really admiring wine and trying to get an education more about wine. So I think I definitely am in this line of work because I really saw how the romance in the wine industry.
So, South Bay Galleria, I know well. Of course, I'm in the area. It's close to gin too, wherever gin is thirsty. Um, did that first restaurant you got recruited to, that was in the area as well?
Oh,
In the South, was it in the South Bay area too, that first restaurant?
no, my first restaurant was in Manhattan Beach.
Oh, okay, up in Manhattan Beach. Nice. What is that restaurant still there today?
They are, yeah, they're still there. I think it's under different ownership. And so I used to work at Lido in Manhattan Beach, and it was owned by Mangiamo, the same team as well. And so, but yeah, I think it's under different ownership now.
Oh, very nice. And then you worked your way up into the valley, into the the heatland.
Oh yeah, ended up going to the valley. Yeah, so leaving the cool, perfect degree weather, 70 degrees year round, to go to the San Fernando Valley. And I think if anyone's like a lover of Entourage
Oh yeah.
on TV, I think there was like an episode of Turtle talking about there's no freaking way he's going to the valley. He doesn't go to the valley between like, May to like December. Just because it's hot in the valley.
So I don't know how many people get that reference, but makes me feel old because I think the other day I just saw they just had was it their 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary of that
Oh
show?
my gosh, yeah, I'm dating myself too, Jason. So you're not alone.
But I love that show. Uh, so I know once you get into the wine business, um, free time is a luxury that you don't get a lot of. But whether it is now or before when you had more free time, what did you like to do? What are some hobbies or free time activities that you enjoy?
Yeah, I think our main hobby for both my husband and I, and a hobby that we actually share together, 'cause a lot of our hobbies are totally different hobbies. But one that we share together has always been travel, food, and wine. But outside of travel, food, and wine, I love hiking. I love walking. I love the beach. I'm not a surfer. I'm not like a boogie boarder, but I could live at the beach 12 hours, 20 hours. I think just growing up in the South Bay, you spend so much time at the beach. It's a little unfortunate now because living in the Central Coast, I love Paso Robles heat. But our oceans here, Cambria, Morro Bay, it's so cold. And so I last maybe like 30 minutes of just a little fog of 60-degree weather, and I'm ready to go back home. But yeah, you can find me on any beach that's warm. That's usually my vibe. And being out in nature, hiking, walking, relaxing in nature is probably one of my favorite things to do.
Still have family down here in the LA area?
I do, yeah. So we still visit. The city of Lawndale is a city that I was like kind of born and raised in, and I have a lot of family there. And then predominantly most of my family, like immediate family members, are in the San Fernando Valley in North Hollywood. So I visit that a lot. So I think NoHo is the little city of Los Angeles that I visit the most. So I miss my family, my friends, they're all down there in LA. But when you live in a wine destination such as Paso Robles, people come to you. My friends did not want to come to me in the San Fernando Valley, but 220 miles away, they'll come to a wine destination without a doubt, many times a year. So I think I see my friends and family more living out here than I did in the Valley. In the Valley, my husband and I had to go to all of our friends in Long Beach, all of our friends in Santa Monica. But it was really, really challenging to get friends to go to the Valley because of the heat.
That's funny. Completely understandable too. It doesn't surprise me at all. I'm sure your guest room is full all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like an Airbnb is what we're running here. I feel like clean sheets, wash sheets, replace sheets.
Yeah, I bet. So, for you and or Stanley, what is your favorite non-wine adult beverage?
Yeah, I can definitely answer both. For my husband, he is absolutely mesmerized by wine. Which is a complete irony because when I married him, he was a huge beer drinker and a cognac drinker. And he would tell me often, he's like, oh no, Elena, don't waste like your wine money on me because I like beer, I like cognac. And now, many, many years later, he will never drink beer. He won't drink cognac. It's like he likes to say he's got one liver, and if he's going to damage it, it's going to be for wine. And for me, I'm the polar opposite. So I love beer now. Being in this
Oh,
line of work, I consume a good amount of beer because I need something that's refreshing, that's
yeah.
bubbly. And we have so many awesome microbreweries in Paso Robles. So it's not beer, it's sparkling water. Just something bubbly and refreshing is what I gravitate to when I'm not drinking wine.
Do you have a go-to beer?
I like my local beer. So Silva Brewing makes really beautiful beer and good beer and refreshing beer. And they kind of remind me of like our little environment. Like it's just like speakeasy. It's in an industrial environment. Like you really have to be in the know to like know of that brewery. So I think in Paso Robles, they're like my favorite little brewery.
I think you're right because I'm not sure I recognize it. Can you say that name again?
Silva, Silva.
Oh, I do too. Good tell. Okay. And so uh, you got exposed clearly to wine through hospitality. Um, what was Stanley's introduction and how did the two of you come together to make this transition?
Totally. Yeah. So my husband and I were high school sweethearts. Our story is a little thick for anyone that wants to know. But yeah, I was 14 and he was 15 when we met. So we met really early on in life, and before we really have become the adults that we've become, and before we, even drank wine or any alcohol whatsoever. I really introduced Stanley to wine once we got married. It's out of graduate school, we had our first careers, his career being in finance, my career being in foreclosures. And having a little bit of a budget and disposable income, I started buying wine, and I introduced him to wine. And I never thought he would take it to a whole nother level, which was cool that he did. But I always kind of joke that I wanted a drinking partner, but I got a business partner in return. So it's really cool how he got into wine through me. And I've created a little monster. At one point, I think I regretted getting him into wine because he would buy so much wine. It was like, so much packages being delivered, and I'm looking and reconciling our bank statements. I'm like, you spent how much on wine? And so, I helped introduce him to that. But for me, it was definitely working hospitality that I'm so grateful I worked hospitality. Because if I did not, who would have known if I would have ever gotten into wine? Our parents don't drink wine. They're both Stanley's parents and my parents, conservative Latino moms. They don't drink. And so now we've corrupted them a little bit. They like a little wine here and there, at least Stanley's mom. My mom still doesn't drink. And so it's really great that now Stanley and I have that as a hobby, is drinking wine.
Do you remember the first wine that made a real impression for each of you?
Yeah, I think, for me, it was, it was a silver oak that I first experienced. And it must have been early 2000s, probably 2003, 2005. And I think that's when I was able to determine that there is a little bit of a difference in quality when it comes to like a standard $20 bottle versus like 100+ bottle. It was my silver oak. It must have been like an 03, 04, 05 vintage. And I experienced that for my first time in 05. And Stanley, it was a Joseph insignia. Yeah, Joseph Phelps insignia specifically. And I think it might have been like an 07 vintage for him. Because Stanley didn't get into wine until 08. So his evolution on wine was pretty insane from 08. And then in 13, he learned how to make wine. He took an internship, and then we started Top in 2014. So when you meet a friend that has like OCD, what is it called? OCD tendencies. That's my husband. I was fine staying at the elementary level forever.
I have the exact same silver oak story.
Oh yeah.
Somebody took us up there in 97, I think it was 97, and we drank some, and I'm going, everything we drank before is crap. Now, but I feel like I'm drinking better wines now than even those, but that was the beginning of starting to blow a lot of disposable income.
And did Chris turn you on to that, Mike?
No, some friends, business associate of hers, that we went up there with them, and they were members for a long time. They'd buy cases of this stuff.
Nice.
But it was fun. It was really eye-opening.
You mentioned Stanley interning. Where did he intern at?
So he interned, it was a Torrin winery, but Torrin shared space with Nicora, and it was an intern under Nicora. And so, he interned there in 2013. And it was really cool because it was like the same facility, but it was like 3 generations. So it was like Scott Hawley of Torrin. He took a young kid under his wing, which was Nick Elliott of Nicora. And then Nick took another kid under his wing, which was my husband. So we all made wine in the same facility for many years, working alongside each other. So I think both of them were very instrumental to our winemaking skills that we have, definitely.
I
Good
love that
mentors
story.
for sure.
They're great people. Scott was so awesome. I would always kind of thank him for allowing us to, make wines and host our first batch of tastings at his winery. It was in the barrel room. And it was so cool because he would chat, and he's like, Elena, he's like, do you know where I got started? I'm like, no, Scott, I don't know how you got started. He's like, I did the same thing at Booker. So I made my wines at Booker. Eric Jensen let me pour my wines in his barrel room. He's like, so it's all about like paying it forward. We're doing this to you guys. One day you'll have your spot and then you get to pay it forward. So now it's pretty cool. Now I have my neighbor car, and I know Mike, you were talking about him coming down there, and it's been good. So if he needs to borrow equipment, he comes over, he borrows it. At one point, he didn't have a forklift. I would hear my little forklift, and I'm hosting tastings. It'd come in and it'd come out. And I knew my husband wasn't there, but I knew Andy was in the back borrowing the forklift. So it's good now that we get to pay it forward.
I think Andy feels like he's got good fortune taking that old space.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of history in that building, which I was oblivious to. But it was our first guest that gave me the education on the history. So many amazing brands that kind of all started there and saved up money and moved on to their own estates. And so it was like Lenny Colado was there, Via Creek was there, Saxon was there, Barrel 27 was there, which was a launch pad to Herman Story and to McPrice Myers. It was Garrettson that was there, Hug Cellar, Bottega de Edgar. And I think with the exception of two brands, everyone has left because they've acquired their own property. And so hopefully that good juju goes to us and then to my friend Andy. So whenever we all get the opportunity to leave, it's because we can now buy some property.
That is an amazing story for that space. It really is. Um, the the story behind the name Top, I know you guys have it on the website. I think it's a really cool story, but for those that haven't read it or heard it, can you share that story?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna put one of the bottles that I'm drinking right now, which is our little rosé bottle. And then all of the bottles have a little spinning top on them. It just happens to be a little toy that Stanley and I played with. So we wanted the name of our business to really mean something to us. And for us, one thing Stanley and I had in common is playing with spinning tops. And so the name happened so organically. It was over the dinner table. My husband cooking as usual, because not only is he a great winemaker, he's actually a really great chef. And we're having dinner and we're talking about what we're going to call our little winery. And he looks down to the little collection of spinning tops. Because we had a little like centerpiece of spinning tops on our dining table. And he's like, Elena, we should call it Top. And I look at the spinning top and I'm like, oh, after the toy, the spinning top. And so I thought it was such a genius name, but for us, it really embarks a metaphor of just like a spinning top, trolling around, trying to maintain balance. Really, that's what Stanley and I wanted to obtain is balance in our professional life. So him and I, having worked corporate, we like to say we had those careers that were kind of like the golden handcuffs, right? They pay you so well, they have so many perks, so many luxuries that keep you there working for them. But at the end of the day, it doesn't satisfy your soul. It's not something that you love, but it gave us the budget to travel. It gave us the budget to collect wine, to get corrupted about wine. And so now as we've pivoted from like corporate America to pursuing our passion, which is wine, we feel like we found that balance, like literally to do something that you love. There's no other words to kind of express that gratitude and express how amazing it is. My husband actually thinks he's retired. So he started telling people when we moved up to Paso that he's retired. And I look at him, I'm like, Stanley, we work a lot of hours, right? He's like, but I feel retired, Elena. And I'm like, so I love how he feels retired, but we definitely found balance doing this. So yeah, Top's all about a spinning top and about balance.
That's real success in life, in my opinion. If what you're doing as a career feels like you're retired, like that's perfect.
For
Like,
sure.
well done and kudos to you guys.
That's a great story.
Yeah. The first, so Stanley first, the first fruit purchase he did was 2013. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so 13 was his internship. He saved his
Okay.
sick time, his vacation time from his corporate job, and came out and was the cellar rat in 2013. And then in 14, we got started.
So then the first vintage released was what year?
2017, 2017.
2017. Okay. 27. It's funny because a lot of ways you guys still feel new to me, but now we're like, geez, 7 years in, right? That's not so new anymore.
Totally, yeah, or like 10 vintages.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we still feel like rookies, right? Because you only get
Yeah.
one opportunity to do this every year. And you're always trying to improve, refine and improve. I think that's life. And so we feel like babies, but when you add our calendar year, it's like we're just celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And I'm like, wow, where did the time go? I mean, we've had so much fun. We've only really lived full time in Paso Robles the last 5 years, and that time has flown by so fast. And so, yeah, we're really looking forward to the next 10, the next 20, the next 30 years.
So what's the cellar time on the wines? What is the process? Because I got an 18 here, and that sounds like 24 months of barreling or something, and then another year of bottle of holding the bottles, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great question, Mike. So for our red wine program, 2018 was the first year that we had like enough cash flow we can pivot and add a little bit more barrel age. So a 2018 vintage was the first vintage that we went from a 18-month cycle in all of our wines to a 24-month cycle. And now we're at a 24-month cycle or a 3-year cycle. We're just completing that part of our goal of our journey this year. So a third of like the 21 vintage production is still in my cellar right now. We're in 2024. It won't get bottled till the end of the month, and it won't get released until next year. So typically for our red wine, we're looking at 2 years of barrel aging, and we're looking at least 1 year worth of bottle age. And we're
Wow.
also crazy enough to age whites and rosés. So usually for our whites and rosés, it's 1 year worth of barrel age with new French oak, and then another year and a half worth of bottle age. So we really have fallen in love with wine. And for us, it's never making a lot of wine. It's always getting our wines out to our fan base when family thinks it's tasting good. And so we invest in barrel age, we invest in bottle age, and it's a little bit about my husband's like meticulous OCD that he has. He's like, Elena, I so love that people have confidence, like our members. Thank you as to a few of our members who are listening. We can't do this without you. But Stanley always talks that he's like, these individuals, they support us, they believe in us. And I want to get them the best possible wine. And that means we need a barrel age, we need a bottle age. It's not going to go to them until I feel it's ready. So if any of you all have received our wines, it's because they got Stanley's stamp of approval.
That's
It's a
impressive.
great,
That's impressive to do that. It's being such a young business, a young winery. Very impressive.
Thank you, Mike. And I think that's how we kept our day jobs for such a long time. And that's the reason why, although we've been making wine 10 years, 5 years of those years, we kept our day job to kind of fund our growth. And it's only been the last 5 years that we've been, 100% on board just to only top, just having one job opposed to two.
Right. Yeah, beautiful.
yeah, that is impressive for sure. Yeah, I'm curious how I'm going to come back to this in a second. I want to talk about um, the wine that you source because you're pulling from like incredible vineyards. And I don't understand why you don't take credit for that on the bottle, but I'll come back to that question in a minute. um, how are you guys determining the wines that you're going to make every year?
For sure. So, we're a Rhone house. we fell in love with Paso Robles for the Rhones, and which is so ironic because both Stanley and I's like wine that turned us into wine are Bordeaux's, are like cabs, right? But we think they do cabs lovely in Napa Valley. We think that we do great Rhones in Paso Robles, and so that's the reason why we're kind of just focusing on the Rhones here. And with those Rhones, it came with a challenge our first years. Like, we weren't ultra wealthy, so we can kind of hire the best winemaker and hire the best consultant. And that consultant and that winemaker has access to incredible fruit. Stanley was lacking enough years in his resume in winemaking for people to hold him credible. These awesome vineyards like G2, like L'Aventure, they only really work with the best winemakers. That's if they work with any at all. And so year one, honestly, nobody wanted to work with us. It took us some time, some street credit for these awesome vineyards to finally source, allow us to buy fruit. But what that created for us, it created us an opportunity to realize that, despite us sourcing fruit from some amazing vineyards, that, blending vineyards is actually kind of wise because we have consistency in our product. And we do like to say we can be 100% unbiased because we don't own any vineyards, that no vineyard is perfect. Every vineyard is going to have weaknesses and strengths. And when that vineyard has a weakness, there's another vineyard that has that strength. So through blending, we're able to make the most complex, complete wine, which is why we usually blend amazing sites to create what we have in our glass. Like, I think the variant that a few of you all had variant, the base is Syrah from G2, but there's splashes of like, Slide Hill, there's splashes of Jada, there's splashes of Denner, there's splashes of L'Aventure. I'm drinking for the red, my pre-session, and that's like L'Aventure, G2, and Slide Hill, like in equal parts. And so now it's cool that we get all these awesome vineyards, but he's totally adding a splash of this and a splash of that, because he thinks by adding a splash, you're able to make the most complex, complete wine. And what's so cool now is that we've been working with some of these for quite some time. So we know the flavor profiles, aromatically, the texture, the tannin contributions. And so we normally know like what kind of dosage we're going to add, into the wines, and where G2 is better in one bottling versus maybe L'Aventure in another bottling, which is more Grenache dominant. So we kind of now have a home for most vineyards, but it will always kind of be.
So that's so you're not able to list any vineyards right now, correct?
Yeah, so in order for it to be vineyard designate, it needs to be 95% from that vineyard.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and most of our wines, the most that we have, maybe 70%, with the exception of like we just had a release this week of our single vineyard wines. So we made 3 so far out of the 10 years we've been making wine. We've made 3. And it's like 100% L'Aventure, it's 100% Hudson, which is in Carneros in Napa Valley, and 100% G2. And it's all Syrah, so we like to say it's like a Syrah tour of what Syrah smells and tastes like at L'Aventure Vineyard, what Syrah smells and tastes like at G2 Vineyard, what Syrah smells and tastes like at Hudson. And that's available on our website. So if anybody, and I think it's just available on our website till like Friday. And then we have no inventory.
That's something that you don't want to miss out on, everybody. That's unique and special.
Those vineyards you mentioned are top shelf. So
yeah,
very
and
good.
all those great vineyards you mentioned, and you didn't even mention Bien Nacido, I don't think, but also
Oh yeah, I think I left them out. I'm so sorry, Bien Nacido. They're among the early ones that gave us street credit. We love them though. I think Stanley was on that vineyard or should be coming back from Bien Nacido as we speak right now.
But just amazing, like how quickly you guys were able to source fruit from that many wineries would love to have access to. What was the secret? Are you guys just really that charming? Did they taste samples of your wine? How'd you
Totally.
pull that off?
You know, Jason, we still ask ourselves that question. Like, how did we get to where we're at right now? I can tell you, we are so extremely grateful. We're so grateful that some pretty cool human beings have confided in us to make something special with their grapes because we know that they have choices, right? They can sell it to any person in Paso Robles, but they elected to put their trust in us. And that's something that we don't take for granted. That's something that literally will keep my husband up at night in regards to making the best possible wine from their vineyards. You know, we want to pay homage to these awesome vineyards and do them right and do them justice. And so I think, you know, in the beginning, what gained us a little bit of credibility really was our work ethics. You know, Stanley and I are workhorses. We're not scared of work. And so from toggling between working full time in downtown LA, Stanley and I, to coming to Paso to kind of make this reality come through, people saw our work ethics. I mean, we literally would drive from LA, depending on the day. Sometimes it was Stanley, sometimes it was me. Whoever had a little bit more sick and vacation time, we would drive, leave LA, and come all the way to Paso Robles for 15 minutes worth of work. It might have just been, you know, topping, or might have just been adding sulfur or running some analysis at Brenda Baker's lab. And that is like a 7 hour commute, 3.5 hours to get to Paso, 3.5 hours to get back for 15 minutes worth of work. And, you know, we knew that that was kind of our journey the first 5 years, and that wasn't going to be the journey, hopefully, in the future. And so we just did it, not even thinking that was abnormal. Now we realize, oh no, that was super abnormal doing that. But we got a lot of street credit by our work ethics. And then, you know, when we finally had a product, we were able to showcase our product to these amazing vineyards. And I like to say that if the vineyards like your wine, you know, it is so much easier to buy grapes from them if they like your wines. And then I think more importantly in business, just them liking you in general. I think that goes a long way. So I like to say we're invited to people's dinner tables, and a lot of the deals are made at dinner tables. You know, when someone talks about they have 2 extra acres worth of Grenache or Syrah here, no, 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 you don't have those 2 acres. We can pick them up. So I think your problem is solved, right? So a lot of deals are done over wine at the dinner table.
Well, the work ethic, I think to your point, may have got you in the door, but I think clearly the product that you've been making is what keeps the fruit coming your way, right?
I hope so. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. We're grateful that year after year we've been blessed in great vintages, great fruit sources, and then us being ultra picky on what we put out.
And uh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, you just completed the circle. I always say that people buy from people they like. That's why you guys are successful, but also people sell to people they like, which makes your connection to the vineyards and some of the grapes more accessible. You're very
Yeah.
likable per people. Yeah.
Like Ed, I would say trust that you're representing their vineyards well.
Correct.
I also like to just say we're just happy people. Like, you know, if you ever come across Stanley and I, we're just happy. We're happy at the grocery store, we're happy at the post office, you know. We have manners, both him and I, which is kind of surreal because we grew up in LA, and anytime I go back and visit LA, although I love LA, I'm like, oh man, they don't have manners. Nobody holds doors. No one's like, please and thank you. But it's like the hustle and bustle of life down there, you know. But I like to say, yeah, we're beyond happy people, and we like to manifest that or show that wherever we're at, whether it's the winery or we're out and about in life.
Very
And
nice.
I've had other reputable winemakers in the area tell me um, how big a fan they are of your wines, and some of members there, and Some are just buying all they can to cellar. But I've truly heard this from other really reputable winemakers in the region. Uh, but I'm curious, who are some of the other winemakers in the region that you guys admire?
I'm so sorry, Jason. I didn't catch the last little sentence.
Yeah, Doris, who are some of the other winemakers in the region that you guys admire?
Oh, that we admire. Yeah. So I think, it's so interesting to see kind of the circle, go full circle. Because we were big fans of L'Avventura when we were in Studio City, living in the valley, and we would get an allocation of their wines. And our first stop in Paso Robles was L'Avventura Winery. I think when they were in a little barn way back when, 2011 was our first trip. So that was a brand that we always admired their style. Like I think we just gravitate towards one another. We're obviously on some big list, some big fishes like Saxon, SQN. We're on their mailing list. And I think what they've done for the wine world in Paso Robles or the Central Coast or for Rhones like SQN, it's pretty awesome. But we have a lot of other local favorites, some that are maybe more well known within the locals out here. So, but we love it. We're not the, what is it called? We just love our community and the wines that are grown here. So often Stanley and I try to make time to go and support the new up and comers and buy some of their wines. And so if you look at our cellar, we have a nice little collection of Paso Robles wines.
So how long were you on the SQN list? And did you get moved up from being in the business?
Oh yeah, so I think we're on the list for like 6 years. And
I'm 8 years in, I think.
are you
So
okay? I
darn
think
you.
I've heard it was 15 years.
Yeah.
We did bypass the wait list, so we did get hooked up by them directly.
Well
And
done.
so I think we would still be on the wait list right now, but gratefully Stanley got to meet Elaine and Manfred, and they kind of moved us up on the list.
Well, I get third twin and fingers crossed and what's the other one? Mexican. So that's how they pacify me in the meantime.
Oh, totally, totally. Yeah, so SQN's coming next for sure.
So what has been to date at least the most challenging part of the wine business?
I think part of the challenge is, I think initially we're getting access to those vineyard sources, right? Because it's kind of like, how do you get your first job if everybody wants you to get experience? It's like so hard to get into it, and really the first years have I think any winery, unless you're ultra wealthy, which is why so many billionaires start off in this line of work, right? It's always cash flow because you are buying product and you're investing in product and you can't sell that product till 4 years later.
Sure.
And so that's why we started off really small and we kept growing and we kept growing. And every dollar we would make, we put back. Stanley and I, we like to say for many, many years, we lived so broke. But we did it on purpose, knowing that we were investing in our futures, right? And I think it was 2021 that we finally scaled to where we knew we had no goals, no aspirations to grow past that tonnage. And so now it's kind of like we've been cruising at what we've been making at 21. So we've made the same amount in 21, 22, 23, and 24. So it's kind of 4 years of like no longer having growth. So I think that one of the biggest challenges in this wine world is scaling your business and having that cash flow to do it. And we take pride that we've never brought on investment help. We haven't had to get ourselves super in debt to do it, but we kept our day jobs. We just had to hustle for so many years to fund our project and to grow with what our budget allowed. So, the most we've ever made of wine is 4,000 cases. But where we'd like to be, it's about 3,000 cases. So on those really big production years like 21 where the fruit is amazing. You have just maybe a half of a ton on every acre, but you multiply that by 20 acres, you end up getting a little bit more fruit. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, but now we've overcome that. And so many of our friends in the wine world, they kind of prepared us for that. They said, first of all, don't be scared. You're going to be scared. And second of all, anticipate being broke for at least 7 years. And so we went in knowing that, and they said, if for any reason you make it to the 10-year mark, if you survive at the 10-year mark, you're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And you're going to be like, oh, I'm so glad. So we're just at the 10-year mark. And we're like, oh, wow, it feels so much nicer at the 10-year mark.
So you want to be at 3,000, you've done higher, and you're selling all your wine.
Yeah. We haven't gone live on all the wine yet, because 21 is the first vintage. We're aging a little bit of the wine 3 years in barrel versus 4 years in barrel.
Oh,
But we are selling it, and we have no distribution. So we take so much pride that we know our people. My friends from Michigan, my friends from Arizona, my friends down south in Orange County. Our wine is special for us. And we want to be able to showcase it with our storytelling and showcase it by developing friendships. And so doing direct to sales has been our biggest blessing. And what we look for, we want people to open up our wines and kind of remember either myself, my husband, or my sister who's part of the team. And hopefully we service therapy through wine.
It's amazing. That's amazing. In a shorter period of time like that to be that successful. Very, very good. Yeah. The wine's great. The wine's great. That's why. I mean, no.
A lot of smart decisions, and it's impressive hearing how prepared you were for, some of the struggles in advance, which probably made it a little bit less of a struggle. You still had to work through it, though, I imagine, but at least you weren't surprised by it, right?
Totally. Yeah. I think we come from a very structured careers. We have to do a lot of budgeting and forecasting. So I think that was super helpful that we kind of prepared ourselves for what are one of the biggest challenges. It's really having the cash to maintain your project, to grow your project, and to do what you love.
Yeah. You were talking about the 21 vintage. How excited are you about the 23 vintage?
Oh my goodness, it was remarkable. I mean, it kicked our butts. Let me tell you, I do not ever want to live another 2023 vintage. And the reason being is that my husband, he doesn't have anyone helping him in the cellar. You're looking at the little cellar fairy that he has. And like all of our fruit came in 3 weeks period. So, I mean, I like to say, could you imagine you having like a 3-month deadline with your employer, right? It's a 3-month deadline and your employer is like, no, psych, I need to escalate this. We need all of that done in 3 weeks. And our employer is Mother Nature. Like Mother Nature does not care if we're a team of 2, which is what we are in the cellar, just Stanley and I. And Mother Nature just gave us all of our fruit, literally, like threw it on our lap. And then Stanley and I had to figure out how we were going to ferment everything because we were out of vessels, how we were going to make space because we were out of space at our winery, how we were going to do all of this in like 3 weeks. And it was excruciating hours. I mean, I could still feel it. I still think I'm like recovering. I may have like some PTSD over that vintage, but it was incredible. I mean, the fruit quality was phenomenal. The fermentations all happened so healthy, so organically. And as we're pressing lot after lot after lot, we're just like, oh, wow, this is what quality is. This is what like a spectacular vintage is. We've now lived through some spectacular vintages, the 14s, the 16s, the 18s, the 19s, the 21s, the 23s. And so tasting the 23s when they were just pressed, you're like, this is special. And we got like Grenache, for instance, is the darkest Grenache I have ever seen in my life. So Grenache smells, not doesn't smell, but it looks like Syrah. That's how dark when you let
Wow.
Grenache hang in there that long. It's pretty awesome to witness such a special 23 vintage.
So somewhere around 26 or 27, we'll get access to the 23s.
Yeah, yeah, at least 23, yeah, 26, 27, definitely.
I,
Sorry,
Well, I'm
we're gonna
looking
make you
forward to
all wait a little bit.
I don't know if everybody agrees with me. This is some of the longest barrel aging and bottle aging that I've experienced in Paso, to tell you
Well,
the
at least as a standard practice. I mean, others will do it as a reserve, right?
right,
Or
right, right. I'm
yeah,
just saying as a standard. Yeah, you're right,
yeah,
Jason.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's, it's again, it's my husband's OCD. He really has a philosophy that in order to be the best, you have to just care to like an extraordinary level. And I love how he thinks because he's like, Elena, I know I'm never going to make it into this book, but if for any reason they ever write a book about wine, it's only going to be the most valuable. Those winemakers that really, really care, they're going to make it into that book. It's my goal to try to make it into that book. And so I love how he just cares, and everything that he does, it's always erring on the side of quality versus quantity. And so if we have to wait longer, we will. And sometimes he throws a little wrench at me because I'm like the CFO. I'm making sure we have, enough cash flow coming in so I could pay for all his barrels that he's buying, so I could pay for all his fruit. Like today, someone just called him for like some incredible fruit. And I'm like, oh no, I have to like work it in the budget. Like, how am I going to make this happen? So it's always a challenge, definitely.
And
so.
Elaine, I know we're getting close to our scheduled time. I've got a few more questions and some shameless self-promotions I want to do for you guys, if that's okay. Do you have a few more minutes?
Oh, absolutely. The night's still young for me. I'm here to
Okay,
hang out with you all.
good. Well, then
Hey,
let me
it's
start
still
here.
light out.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Summertime. Um, a couple of years ago, James Suckling comes to town and he reaches out to the reputable Stefan Aseo and says, Stefan, I need the best winemakers together in the region. And he pulls a short list together, and you guys are at the table, right?
Yes.
I mean, what? I mean, that's got to feel good. I mean, that's not.
No kidding. Yeah.
I mean, you're not rookies at that point, but it's still kind of early on. What was that experience like in
Yeah,
getting that call?
I do like to say, I think I'm very versed with the culinary world, where sometimes there's like those, 3-star Michelin restaurants, 2 stars, 1 stars, and those chefs have received that notoriety from like reputable organizations. But like if you ask these chefs like what their favorite place to eat at is like the underdogs, right? The undiscovered territory that eventually maybe one day will be that 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. So I think in our wine world, we're kind of that. We're not at their status yet, but it's so cool that they see talent in us and that they buy our wines, they collect our wines, that, when they have time off, they come out and hang out with us in our tasting room. And so it's really cool. Like, we have many who are in this line of work, whether they're just getting started or have been in this line of work for many, many years, or are members, so it's so surreal to have people whom you've collected their wines now collect your wines. And we still have to pinch ourselves. We're like, oh wow, they do like our wines. Like that's really cool. So it's super humbling, but for us, it still is kind of new. And we're like, oh, that is like the coolest compliment. So when Stefan invited us for that James Suckling tasting, obviously it was such an honor, such a privilege. And we will always show up and we'll just be ourselves, we'll be ourselves. But we're so grateful for how generous this wine community has been to us, without a doubt. They've been our advocates, they've been our cheerleaders. we know without a doubt we picked the right community, which is Paso Robles, to do business because we've gotten the love from our people.
Well, the humility is impressive and clearly charming. Uh, because not only that, but I mean, there's a lot of accolades that we could talk about. One other one that I want to just mention is getting added to the wine list at French Laundry. So
Yeah.
what's that phone call like?
Oh yeah, it's really humbling too to like have your wines like at a 3 star. And this is not to discredit French Laundry, but for us, like the coolest experience is like our wines being at your guys' table, right? From teachers to firefighters to law enforcement to,
Okay,
believe it or
maybe we should go into politics.
not,
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah.
to like some of our wines are, I ship to a couple of billionaires and I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's like our wines are for everyone,
That's right. That does matter. But when you get added to the French Laundry, everybody else, they perk up,
Totally, totally. But
it doesn't hurt, right?
it is great to be I think at the French Laundry, more so because Stanley learned wine through their wine list. And when Stanley, was pivoting from a beer drinker to a cognac drinker, he was planning our 1 year anniversary. And for our 1 year anniversary, he wanted to take me to Napa Valley. And this is still when he was drinking beer. He knew nothing about wine, but he knew food. And so he's like, hey, the French Laundry is the best restaurant in Napa Valley. That's where I'm going to take Elena. So he hopped on the wine list of the French Laundry and he said, if it's good enough to be in the French Laundry, it's good enough for me to take Elena to. And so he took me to some incredible wineries in '08. This is during the recession. So, people weren't buying those ultra, cult wines. And if they were buying, maybe to not that magnitude. So ordinary people like Stanley and I were able to go have some awesome wine tastings at some really hard to get to wines. And so fast forward many, many years later, when now our wines are on there, it's kind of cool to know that Stanley learned wines through their list and that now they're pouring our wine.
That's another great story.
That is just amazing. It's very great story, really.
Um, Elena, we always ask, and it's a popular segment here, for a pro tip, and a pro tip can be anything as it relates to, how to consume wine in the best way, the most effective way. What can people do differently? Anything from how they acquire it, how they store it, how they consume it. So I want to get your thoughts on a pro tip for the group.
Absolutely. I think, what I think for us, I want to just highlight like our whites and rosés, especially because we're in the summertime. But for our white and rosé, this is our rosé label again. And then for the whites, it will be a silver on black. We really do craft whites and rosés like reds in regards to the texture that you're going to experience and the aroma you're going to experience. And you're going to better experience our whites and rosés at cellar temperature, which is 55 degrees, right? So we are not the traditional winery that's telling its fan base, put it on ice, like refrigerate it, put it super, super cold. We're actually telling our fan base the complete opposite. We're like cellar temperature and decant it, treat it like a red wine, because at 55 degrees and once it starts warming up a little bit, oh, the bouquet is so beautiful. And my husband worked so hard on the whites and the reds and the rosés to get the aromas just right, to get the texture just right. And we like to say that we know we're putting our wines to the test, whites and rosés, when it's in a warmer environment, but we feel that they're almost flawless slightly. And so please put it to the test. You'll actually benefit because you'll get to experience the wines just like Stanley wants you to experience it. And the aromas and the textures are such a huge, vehicle of experiencing wine. So for any of those that are familiar with our whites and rosés, hopefully you're enjoying them that way. If you want it just a little bit chiller, that's okay. You could put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes or on ice for 30 minutes, but not too much longer because it's going to mute it down. It's going to shut it down. So I think that's a pro tip for our whites and rosés for sure.
That is a great pro tip. And I just add this again about your rosé. I love all your wines, truly. Most rosés I'm not a huge fan of because they feel like leftover grapes, as they are for some wineries. Yours is an absolute exception for me. I love your rosé. I mean, it's just so complex and so flavorful. It stands out to me amongst most rosés I've ever had.
I've been
Um,
enjoying that all night long.
good, good.
Hey,
So
can we talk a little bit about the winery and the tasting? I mean, if you're going
yeah,
there, so I
that's
can
right
show
where I
some
was going to
video.
go. Yeah, you're right, right on cue. So Elaine, anything you would like to share about your current lineup, your club, or your tasting room? And
Sure.
we'll do it to the background of the video of your tasting room.
Definitely, that's our patio space, our walkway through, because we're speakeasy. So once you get to our winery, you'll notice that little wooden fence. We have no signage, so we like to say you got to be in the know to like know about us. But our space is limited, so we do highly recommend reservations, just so we could better cater to your experience. Some of our members, we keep notes on people, so we know if you only drink whites or if you only drink reds. And so we want to always make sure that your experiences, we deliver at least on your experience. So we're open Thursday through Monday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. is our last reservation. And so we're predominantly by appointment, but we do like to stay by chance. But there are those, opportunities that sometimes we just don't have a seat to put someone in. So we do highly recommend a reservation. And I am definitely on the floor. I would say 4 days out of the week. One day I reserve for bookkeeping. But if I'm not on the floor, it's my sister who looks like me, sounds like me, just is blonde. I'm brunette, she's blonde. So if you ever come into my tasting room, you'll know that it's her. And then you'll see my husband in the background, topping wines, racking wines, working on blends, cleaning up the cellar, or what have you. And so, yeah, please come. If you haven't visited us, please visit us. And for those that have visited us, thank you so much for your support. It means the world. You've kept us busy throughout this journey. For anyone that wants more information, I mean, our website has information on our wine club and that one wine that we have available. Usually our website has like no wine available. But a week ago, I just turned on our single vineyard. So that's also available on our website. But we do hope to meet you all and bring your friends and family. They'll meet the immediate family, which is myself, my sister, and my husband. So it's super easy to meet all three of us in one day.
Plus, when I come there, I want to hear that Curtis Mayfield album. That's a freaking classic. That's a freaking classic.
That's my favorite. So I have Curtis on like 5 days out of the week, and I don't get tired of it.
You can't go wrong there.
Yeah, but we let all of our guests kind of, look at our record collection and put on something that they want. But I would say most of the guests are happy listening to Curtis Mayfield, and I just turn it over and over and over. He's a staple at Top Winery.
Well, that's what we did in the 70s. I know we're there, but
Not yet. I'm an 80 baby.
no, that was way back. Yeah. Anyways,
Well,
you've been a fantastic guest, and I'm very impressed with the process. It was great to learn about it because I didn't know that much about what you were doing there and your approach. Jason, you got anything?
well, I just want to say thank you, Elena. Thank you for your time, and everybody that dialed in. Thank you. We appreciate you sacrificing the Olympics tonight for a worthwhile cause and a very talented winemaking team. But thank you for all your time this evening. If you have a couple more minutes, there might be some Q&A on it. People like to throw questions up in the chat. If not, I know we're at time, so we will honor that too.
Are you okay with some questions?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Anybody have a question? Just jump in. I'm not going to read the chat. You have
Yeah,
any?
I'm too lazy to write something in the chat, but I will kind of hit here. I have two questions, but hopefully short ones. I tasted with you when you were at the back at Nicora Winery, and I still remember the Zalto glasses that you had there.
Definitely.
But so my two question is one, there is a vineyard that you currently are not sourcing from, but you would really, really want to source from? Question number one. And question number two is, you mentioned that you like food, wine, and travel. What are your favorite pairings of top wines with food?
Yeah. So, great question. I appreciate that. If there were a vineyard that we wanted to source fruit from, it actually is Paderewski in
Epoch.
Epic. But I think that was the call that my husband just got for like a couple days ago. So I think we might be sourcing from that. So I might have spilled the beans on that. So that one's like check. Now I could mark that off the list. But I think that was like the only vineyard really that we really wanted to source fruit from. And
Or James Berry?
Oh yeah, James Berry too, but I mean it's probably impossible. So like I wouldn't even yeah, I mean he's I know he's got a couple of properties that are going live, but I didn't even throw that out because you got to be realistic. But yeah, hey Justin, if you have fruit, holler at us. We'll take it.
Hey, looking at your track record, you might get a call tomorrow.
I know, right? But food and wine pairing. So my husband makes a really awesome dish called cochinita pibil, and that comes from the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, and it's like a slow braised pork dish. With like native like seasonings of the Yucatan, and it's on a tortilla, and it has like pickled onions. There's a little bit of spice, but we've paired that with our GSM, and our GSM can handle it. So I think like a perfect date for me or perfect night is when Stanley makes cochinita pibil tacos, and we have our GSM. Like that is like full circle for us.
It sounds
Thank
amazing.
you.
Good question, Dimitro.
Elena, you said that when you first were introduced to wines, you were really into cabs or the Bordeaux's, but you've ended up focusing primarily on Rhone varietals. What made you shift from your love of Bordeaux's to wanting to do just Rhone varietals?
I think when you get into wine, cabs are such an easy introduction because cabs are in every restaurant, right? They're in every restaurant, they're in every wine shop. So it was like an easy evolution from us being in LA, getting access to really good cabs. And then we started exploring the world a little bit. We realized that grapes are better suited in certain regions versus other regions. And so really specializing in a region means specializing in certain grapes. And so, we analyzed doing business up north in Napa. I mean, I think my husband wanted to start in Napa. I think he was a little disappointed when I told him we didn't have the budget to start in Napa. I was like, dude, we could get started, but we're going to do one barrel. Like, that's what we have the budget for. But here's Paso Robles. We can do many barrels in Paso Robles. And, when we first got started in 2014, we made Rhone grapes, but it was always still my husband's desire to get grapes from Napa, specifically Cab from Napa, and make it in Paso Robles. And then we visited the Rhone Valley in 2015, and we discovered the Rhone Valley from north to south. And we came back to our home in LA, and my husband's like, Elena, there's so much cab in our cellar. Like, why do we have so much cab? And so then it was just kind of our evolution of wine, where we pivoted into like liking everything, but realizing how special these grape varietals, the complexity, and then doing it in Paso Robles, which is like such an awesome place to do business. And we have great camaraderie and colleagues out here. We're so glad that we decided to stay with the Rhones and stay in Paso.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for your question too.
Anybody else have a question?
There's a question here from Janet and Bill. asking about your wine club, if you want to talk about that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I like to say we're the easiest club to join. We're also the easiest to separate. We handle divorce very civilly. We know when people have too much wine or life happens. I think part of our business model has always been understanding. We know when life happens and you have to put something on hold or anything like that, but we hope that we do everything in our power to keep our members happy and keep producing beautiful wines for people year after year. But we have 3 tiers of a wine club. So our first tier is a 4-bottle commitment 2 times a year. We're just getting ready to release our fall in like 3 weeks, so that'll be coming out at the end of August. And we have another tier, and that's our motion, our 4-bottle commitment. Our balanced commitment is 6 bottles 2 times a year, spring and fall. And then we have quantum for those that can't get enough top wine and need 12 bottles 2 times a year, spring and fall. And then our fall allocations are coming out in 3 weeks. So this is the best time to join our club because we'll have some wine next year. We run out of wine a little bit, so we're trying to figure out how to keep our tasting room open, how many hours, how many days. We might have to put our club on hold in regards to new members, putting them on a wait list, but we run out a little bit of product next year because we actually take a little dip in production. We're going live on the 2022 vintage, and we made a little bit less wine in 2022. So, but anyone that joins us now, they get full access next year. But come at the end of the year, we have to evaluate how many more new members we can accept.
I consider myself a bit of a wine club aficionado. So here, I'm going to tell you what's special about yours. It doesn't matter whether you join the 4-bottle, the 6-bottle, or the 12-bottle, you get access to wine club only wines.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That doesn't happen on all the wine clubs. So it
Yeah.
usually is top tier. You got to buy a couple cases a year or a little bit less, but that's good club.
Thank you. Yeah. We allow our people to customize it 100% to their liking. And
Yeah.
again, it's just us being winos and wine enthusiasts and being customer service oriented. We don't want anyone to be forced to buy what we are trying to sell. We want people to love what they get. And so if they only want all Grenaches at release, we got you. They only want all Syrahs, we got you. And so yeah, we try to make it as customer service as possible.
Anybody else have any questions? Steve, you look like you want to say something.
Oh, I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy your wines. I had the pleasure of meeting your sister at the tasting room. We've been a member now for a couple of years. I'm actually looking to upgrade my membership. I was looking on the website to see where to do it as I press for that release you have out there about the single varietals. So again, thanks. Really enjoy your wine and congratulations on your success.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. As you've met my sister, you probably could hear that we sound a lot alike.
Yes, you do. Yes,
We
you do.
often confuse people. They're like, "Hey, Elena, your hair is different," or "Hey, Yudi, your hair is different." Sometimes I think we're a bit too much for my husband because we act and sound a lot alike. But hey, we appreciate your support, Steve, and just feel free to shoot us an email, give us a call, anything that we can do to help. We're definitely to help you.
And I love that area where you are. The 4 wineries that are in there are all fantastic.
Oh,
Really enjoy going up there.
Yeah, we love our neighbors, Rochelle and Karen. So they're the best neighbors.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. You guys made room for, I know that you like reservations and I appreciate that. We were in town 2 weeks ago and I always make sure we have some wine for our meet your maker so that we're drinking while we learn more about you. And so I was going to just pop in, but you guys made room for us to do a whole tasting and I appreciate it. And we've been drinking the Rosé and the Roussanne tonight. And
Rosanne is amazing. I love this.
Oh, I'm so glad. And we sold out of that. So you came at the right time. I feel like the cosmos was sending you our way, but it was so nice seeing you in the tasting room. I recall when you came in, and you really made my day that day. Like I kept telling my husband, I was like, "Oh my gosh, so cool! They're gonna hop on the Zoom." They came and picked up some wine, and so I was looking for you guys. So I'm glad I got to see you right now.
I'm sorry, I got stuck at the office and then got stuck in traffic a bit on the way home, so I was a little bit late. I apologize. I have a completely non-wine, well, mostly non-wine question. Okay, it's a decorating question. I'm looking at your background. You have a red wall and you have a yellow gold wall. Those are the two colors of red wine and white wine.
I know, right?
And you have black cabinetry. And I'm just saying, you kind of look like my house too. Can you see the red wall?
That's funny.
And the black cabinetry and the, oh, you're trying to show, yeah, now you can maybe see that it's red. I was just laughing when I was watching you talk.
We're in the same home. We're. I'll come meet you in the
Mine's coming
hallway.
from inside the house.
By the way, Elena, the Patrick and Lara here, they're hardcore Meet Your Makers attendees.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
So
guys.
are Nancy and Steve. So is
Right,
the
Nancy and Steve,
Perlmans
Lara and Joe.
Hey,
Yeah, everybody
how
here.
y'all doing? Hey, I'm impressed with the sourcing of the grapes from the Carneros region. La Adventure is a totally organic vineyard area, and some of the other ones. Have you looked at like Santa Lucia Highlands or anywhere like that?
Yeah, no, we actually source a little bit of fruit from down south to Santa Rita Hills, Santa Barbara, and a little bit in Santa Cruz as well, like the Gavilan Mountains. And so we don't discriminate on AVAs. We think that there's some incredible grapes to be sourced and found in other regions outside of Paso. Paso is always our base. So it will always be like, 80% of the grapes come from Paso, but a little splash here to accentuate, a little splash there, which is why we're in Carneros and Napa Valley, because that cool climate Syrah creates
Yes, yeah, you're gonna have to stick with the cooler climate appellations. In Carneros, it would qualify, and some of the stuff in Santa Barbara and Monterey, the Santa Lucia Highlands up there as well.
Yeah, so in the Gavilan Mountains, there's an awesome vineyard named Eden Rift. So we source a little bit of Grenache from Eden Rift. And so, so I think it's like all of California, I feel like that we source grapes from.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Great
Well,
question.
that's fantastic, and obviously your ability to make great wine is what got you in the door. So just capitalize on that and keep going with the great sourcing, and you're bound to just pound out some winners.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the encouragement. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we look forward to visiting you next time we come up.
Yeah, we'll come see you.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you all.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you, my friends. Thank you so
very
much for having me on. It's been
Thanks,
such
Jason.
a fun night.
Great job. Everybody have a great evening. Anybody wants to hang out and chit chat? Where it is, you know what I do.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Bye,
Elena.
Elena.
Have a great night, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye, John Raymond. Bye.
Go get
That was impressive. Oh, well, I better turn the recording off here.
That's impressive.
Hold on a second.
Website, see if there's a couple of those single vineyards, especially if there's a Carneros region.